Drum Talk, I want to share a little clip of an interview I watched on another channel, John DeChristopher's channel, who used to be the rep for Zildjian cymbals for years and Simmons drums, and a lot of other drum companies he worked with. He's been in the industry a long time. He brings on some of the most famous drummers in the world, guys like Steve Gadd, Rick Morana. And this past weekend, he brought on Andy Newmark. Andy Newmark is the drummer on Carly Simon's Anticipation, the song Anticipation. But not only that, he's played on a bazillion other things, Sly and the Family Stone, John Lennon's last album, Double Fantasy. And Andy Newmark is one of those session guys that I always wanted to be like. And those of you that know my story know that I have a story where I did my first album, I got replaced by a session drummer named John Hammond. This is a story from Andy Newmark about after he cut Anticipation, a worldwide hit record for Carly Simon, after he did the Sly and the Family Stone Fresh album, which has been critically acclaimed. He goes to England to cut the next album for Carly Simon called No Secrets, and he gets replaced by the great Jim Gordon on drums. And Andy tells the story about how that one drum session of doing You're So Vain with Jim Gordon playing drums and him getting to watch it, how that changed his life. And I have to say that that was the experience I had when John Hammond played, and I watched him cut those last 4 tracks on the Saved by Grace album. It changed my life because I knew now where I needed to shoot for, what I was going for the rest of my life. And I can tell you that today, at 60 years of age, I am finally starting to get my playing to the place where I understand exactly what Andy's talking about in this piece of drum wisdom from this wonderful interview. So I really wanted to share this. I'm going to send this to John DeChristopher, and I'm going to hope he allows me to do this. I'm going to ask his permission. But give it a listen. Drum Wisdom from Andy Newmark. A great clip. And I would recommend you check out the entire interview, but this is just a clip, just to give you a taste. Thank you all for watching, as always. Hope you enjoy.
No Secrets with Carly was the following autumn in '72.
Yeah.
When I watched Jim Gordon record You're So Vain. It was a big learning experience for me to watch Jim Gordon record You're So Vain. Carly brought us to England to do the second record. And it was with a big time, very successful producer who had made lots of hit records named Richard Perry. We went through all the songs, the band, when we got to London in '72. And we were suitable on maybe 5 or 6 of them. But Richard Perry had very specific ideas and said, okay, well, it works with Andy on these songs, but I'm bringing in Jim Gordon to do these songs, and one of them is You're So Vain. So whatever it was I was doing when we were working on You're So Vain, it was not happening for Richard Perry. And I went to the studio and just said, hey, Jim, I'm Carly's road drummer. Do you mind if I sit in the drum booth and watch you play? And he was like, hey, it's cool. So I got to sit in the drum booth and watch Jim Gordon come up with the drum part for You're So Vain. And that, in 3 or 4 hours, I learned more than I think I've learned in my entire 22 years of my life. I learned more watching Jim Gordon come up with that drum part, and just to see him physically doing it, not just hearing it, but when you see a drummer doing it, there's an added thing to it. You see the body language, and it all kind of makes more sense. So that was mind-blowing, what I learned from Jim that day. Because that You're So Vain groove, kind of dum, 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 you're so vain, dum, dum, that boom, 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 that kind of California laid back boom, 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 boom. I wasn't cool with that. That was like very West Coast, relaxed Californian. I was into a much more funky head.
Yeah.
And being able to make that beat, dum, bum, bum, really sit down, I was not capable of that the moment I was watching Jim Gordon. I knew it. It was kind of just out of my vocabulary, and he owned it and made it feel so good. And I really understood watching him. Man, it's about conviction and owning every note that you play. I really got it loud and clear that Jim knows exactly what he's going to do every bar, exactly what he's going to play. He can do it over and over for 30 takes. If Richard Perry gives him instruction, he has the brain to alter it and remember it and incorporate it. But the conviction behind every note on the hat and the snare, the grace note, there was nothing, there were no throwaway notes. There was no spontaneity. He was programmed like a drum machine to deliver that drum part. And it is a brilliant drum part if you sit down and listen to it. It's got 3 or 4 different gears. It's got the cross stick. Anyhow, I really understood when I saw Jim what is involved in making what for me is good music. I had to learn to leave all that behind and go and play simple and make it really sit down. But at least I knew that. I knew I had to learn how to do that. And Jim Gordon was like, that was the day the door opened.